Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jamie Hibb, Go Pastor here at Highland. Today, we are excited to share with you episode number 3 of our Go Global interview series. We'll hear from our partners in the Netherlands, Steve and Rhonda Ashworth. Welcome. We are glad to have you in on this video today to hear from friends and partners of ours, Rhonda and Steve Ashworth. I'm going to redo that because I want to say Steve's names first because that's how we do things. Welcome into another video today. We're going to connect with our friends and partners living in Amsterdam, Steve and Rhonda Ashworth. So welcome to you. Glad to have you on today to hear about what the Lord's doing in your ministry and the life of your family there in Amsterdam. So welcome. Great to see you both.
Thank you so much. Great to see you, and super to be with everyone there, although definitely at a distance. So.
Yes, and we are physically at a distance here, but nonetheless with you guys. So grateful for the work that God's given to you, but that we can come alongside and be blessed to be a part of that as well. And we're joining the Ashworths. So they've both been there in country for 25 years plus now, faithfully living life and raising a family there. And things have been different for them in this season, just like us. So today we'll hear about that a little bit. Why don't you guys share a little bit about yourselves, where you're serving there, who you're serving with, and a little bit about your family.
Sure, great. Well, just chatting, we've been realizing indeed working here in Amsterdam for 20 plus years. It was just in 1990 when I did a discipleship training school. So that's for those who are born since 1990. That's a long time ago. And if you weren't born since 1990, it's still a long time ago. But it's been an amazing journey. Ron and I are celebrating our 25th anniversary this August. So we're looking forward to that. It'll be different than what we expected. But it's also been 25 years of getting to serve together in the Lord, and most of that's been here in Amsterdam, but some of it's been in northern Iraq, in the Philippines, and other countries around the world. So, in a wide variety of ways, everything from using my accounting skills from Baylor to leading the base here, and now on a national level, getting to co-lead with a good friend for YWAM here in the Netherlands. And then working together with Rhonda. Why don't you tell a little bit more yourself?
Yeah, it's been great to be here in this lovely country and serving together with Steve, raising 3 kids here. It's interesting raising kids in another country, but it's also a blessing that they certainly end up bicultural, and you end up being more bicultural yourself too, bicultural family. And I've been involved with a number of initiatives with our friends here, sharing the gospel with different people we meet, and also now I'm helping more on a European level in just serving strategic projects throughout Europe.
That's great. Well, we're grateful for the continued work that you do both here and there. And I'll say to those of you who are watching now, listening, that they've been faithful even as a family to go and to do some of those works together. And their kids have been very faithful in serving the Lord as well as they're in those transformative now college and just post-college years and high school, things like that. So why don't you share a little bit about your family there with your kids and kind of where they're at today?
Sure. Well, we've got 3 now adults. Marie, our youngest, just turned 18 this past May. And so, definitely a different life stage than some other stages we've walked through, and there's still more to come. Our oldest, John, is 23, just turning 24 this month in July. And so, and our second, Sarah, is turning 21 this month in July. And so, Sarah and John both graduated from university a little bit differently than they expected. John might do a cap and gown like ceremony in the fall. They said they might do that. He was at a Christian university up in the Chicago area called Judson, and he graduated with a graphic design and architecture minor. And so he's looking for what his next steps are. Why don't you tell a little about Sarah and Marie?
Yeah, Sarah just graduated from university locally here, and in physics, and she's wanting to study a bit in Oxford at their Oxford Center for Apologetics, and then integrate science and faith together a bit in the future. And then Marie is wanting to take a gap year after she graduates from high school, basically this month. And she would like to work on her music skills and take some online courses, then do a DTS in January and apply at Wheaton for next year.
Especially she'd like to do their Conservatory of Music program and a math degree. So she said,
Not very ambitious.
Go big or go home is what she told me. So,
Oh,
so anyway,
We'll see.
we'll see
That's
how
great.
that all works out. Yeah.
Well, I know having been able to be over there with you guys to serve alongside and getting to work even with your family as well. For those of us who have come, it's been a blessing to get to know your kids. They've been terrific to work alongside. And I know those of us who have children, it's been for me, I guess I'll speak for myself, an aspiration towards, hoping my kids, have that kind of fervor, have that love for the Lord, that appreciation for culture. I know your kids speak more than one language. I pray that for my kids, that they'll be faithful to go and to serve and to live in those places. And so it's been a real blessing to get to see and to hear about where the Lord's directed your children here and there and across water, here, even in the States, I know. And so it's been a real good thing for me and an encouragement as a father to be able to work alongside. So that's a side note for those listening, but it's been a blessing to watch your family on mission for the Lord and what that's like there in the country. So, but I know these days, much like us, it's looked different, but yet we're all sharing in this global pandemic together in this season. So I think our folks here would be curious as to kind of what that's looked like there. And that's kind of handed down from government, I'm sure requirements or at least suggestions, things like that. But that also leads to daily life not looking like it would normally. So just curious how that's changed for you a little bit in this season, how that's impacted you or ways that you've gone about continuing to minister. So maybe share a little bit about that with us.
Yeah. Thanks, Jamie. Well, for sure, things have been very different the last 6 months for everyone who's been affected by this. I think in many ways, I think certainly on a global level, we're really blessed here in the Netherlands that they chose maybe a little bit of an ambitious term, but they call it an intelligent lockdown.
Right. I like it.
But in a sense, to give people, and I think that kind of goes with the culture, a lot of say-so of their own choice, rather than trying to enforce with fines, there's still some fines, but with police going out and asking people to show, where are you going and for what purpose and those kind of things, which of course many people have had that experience or even, more severe situations. So at the same time, the basics, stay at home, work from home if you can, and all the rest of that. And so it has been adjusting. We're just starting to have our first meetings with people face to face. Not too long ago, just had my first team leaders meeting with our base leaders from the 2 larger bases that YWAM has here in the Netherlands, and a couple of other gatherings where we're just starting to connect. But yeah, church has gone online. Meetings, worship times. Our base has a morning worship at 10 a.m. every morning, except for Sundays. So that's on Facebook. It's it's live, and that's created a lot of worship and connection in different ways that people wouldn't have had. It's created other rhythms that as I'm sure most of you know, there's new rhythms that you've had to develop. And I think that's one of the exciting things is, hey, what are the new things that we can take away from this rather than just all the things that we can't do?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in a way, we've never lived through a pandemic before, you know, and in a way, it's to me, it's an awesome time of the year that it happened, because it's spring, summer, which being able to be outside, see the sunlight, it makes a huge difference, I think, just in everyday life. And I think it's kind of made a kind of a focus a bit more on rest, a bit more on kind of what are your own personal self-care rhythms, you know, and I think it's also put a more focus on family, on even neighborhood. And I know we have a trampoline in our backyard that was for our kids as they got older, and now all our neighbor kids, they found a way to kind of to come in, and it's become kind of a hot spot in the neighborhood. So there's been different things, different ways it's developed. But yeah, it's certainly a different time, and it's difficult not seeing people face to face, for sure. And sometimes I think especially about the people that live on their own. I mean, just eating with other people. And sometimes we've eaten with people at a distance online, you know, and I think it takes a level of certainly creativity and thinking, yeah, what would bless someone else?
Yeah, and slowly as well, just to be able to have a few people over, or certainly some of the, there's some single friends of ours that live in our neighborhood, and where here in the Netherlands we are allowed to have up to 3 people as visitors at a time. So, you know, work out the distancing thing, but still to just say, hey, you're not alone. And how can we include others in that part of our life? And also, I mean, you asked about outreach. I mean, some of that's shifted. Some of that's, we've had opportunities to connect with people online, pass things on. Of course, you can almost get overwhelmed with all the different things that people pass around, but trying to be, you know, so, hey, what would be really good for, you know, for our Syrian friends? What would be good for other friends from other countries, and that would maybe really touch their heart, and just be a way to say, hey, we know you're out, you're there, and we're connecting, and how can we do that in meaningful ways for them?
I think that's been effective too for each of us, like you said, both of y'all, and what you're saying there, to pick up on the fact that what are the most meaningful things that we can do, because we might not have seen those things before, or maybe they were there, you know, we just weren't aware of them. And I think you talked about like looking at what were rhythms in our lives, and you know, on the positive side for me coming out of this, I've just been thinking through like what are things that don't need to be restored, you know, or maybe just in a smaller way, and what needs to step forward. So there are big lessons for all of us, and we each have to take that on. But it seems like, I know they're dealing with other cultures and even other languages, things like that. You know, it seems like it's kind of bubbled up, you know, some things that you can do there. And like you said, to, you know, you're single, or, you know, neighbors, you know, those who are, you know, in a place where it's really tough. It's tough for us even when we're in isolation, you know, with family, you know, I have someone else there, but much less those who are at a distance. And so it seems like you'll be creative in how to best go about that, to try to figure out what you guys can do to help and serve and love your neighbors there, because you have a great little neighborhood, and even the kids sneaking in to get on the trampoline. So that's, didn't see that coming, but whatever, you know, whatever works, it's great. So that's good to hear about. So I was thinking, as a side note, specifically, because y'all mentioned this was a big part of your life and what you do with the organization, about DTS. I think that'd be helpful for people to know, because it's such a valuable, really invaluable entry point for so many people. So if you can maybe give highlights of kind of what that looks like and what the design of that's for, I think that'd be helpful for them to know.
Well, super. It's been a transformative event for so many thousands of people around the world. I think there's about 600 different locations globally that people can do a discipleship training school, and that we in Youth with a Mission, or YWAM, along with many other things, shortened to the letters abbreviation, DTS. And it's typically 5 to 6 months, generally 12 weeks in a location, and then 8 to 12 weeks on an outreach in a cross-cultural setting. In January, we had one of our largest DTSs in Amsterdam that we've had in recent years, with 40 some students and staff. Ron and I were able to teach in that. We did the Kairos course, or it's kind of the miniature version of the Perspectives course, if you're familiar with that. Amazing time. And that was the first week of March. And they had their last week the next week, because then it's like, hey, you got to get back to their home countries. Not sure whether they'll even be able to get back. One of our students was from India, just barely made it back to his home country before India shut their borders. Of course, many from the States and from across Europe. And it was like, okay, outreach is going to look a little bit different this time around, and they've been super creative. A recent meeting, we just were talking about, hey, what's that going to look like for September? And as we're saying, you know, we don't know fully, but we're walking in faith that things will be open enough that people can come, whether that's from here in the Netherlands or from the US or other countries. And you know, even if we have to stay socially distant in the classrooms or at, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we will, you know, it's more like, well, you said something really interesting about this whole social distancing thing.
Well, to me, it's a little bit like we're in a new culture. We think we're in our home culture, or where we are right now anyway, but we're in a new culture. So what adjustments would we make if we were reaching out in a new culture? If they said you have to stay, you know, 1.5 meters, 6 feet away, well, that's what we do. And if he said you had to, I don't know, wash your hands all the time and whatever, we do it because we want to reach them with the gospel. And the same goes for now. This is just another culture, even though it's where we thought we'd go from being the same culture, we're in a different culture.
Yeah, that's a great job. I'll give you high marks to YWAM with you for cultural adaptation, because those are certainly learned skills, but you're absolutely right. It's a great vantage point because it does teach us. And I think that's what we've seen here as we've tried to relaunch at Highline, you know, even having a gathering and, like you said, honoring those things that we've been asked, either required or, you know, encouraged to do. And one of those is really, I mean, not, you know, it's not outside the Bible. It's telling us, you know, to consider others and to be those that would defer to someone else. And those are all cultural related things. That's a great vantage point. I appreciate you sharing that, because we are in a new place. And if it's that learner server attitude, not that it makes things easier, but it does kind of, you know, if you're open to that, you're willing. Lord's taught me to open my hands in this season. It's fine to plan and try to go along, but, you know, things can change in a moment. And so that's a great perspective as you are experiencing that, wanting to continue forward with something that you've been doing for years. DTS, thousands of people rolling through, but not in 2020, you know, that's not how it's looked. But to move forward, those are adjustments we have to make if we want to continue doing those things, which we need to do. Yeah. So,
certainly some of our other courses, we've been looking at how to put them online if necessary. Sure. And one of the courses is a discipleship making movements online. And there's so far 800 people that have signed up, not for just this location here, but for more globally. And it's amazing what can happen online as well as just in one location.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing too, is it does expand your efforts and opportunities. It can feel a hindrance as well, because I think we've all learned, if anything, about community. That's what I've been reminded is, we're not created to be those who live in isolation. We're created for community. And while I'm thankful for technology, it's where would we have been 5 years ago? Like it's better than, it could have been, but there's just no replacement of being in the presence of others. But there are some things with training and those types of things that online is effective. It's not the same as a classroom, but it's okay. We're still being trained and educated in those things. So yeah, so I know it's going to look different for all of us, but I commend certainly you guys and the organization for wanting to see how we can best, reach people and share that way. So that's super helpful. So for others, you guys have been with us here before, and so if people have been to Go Global and a part of that, they've heard from you a bit. But I learned last time I always try to ask about countries, like what someone might know about a country, or what are 2 or 3 things that you've heard about a country. And so since you've been in the Netherlands so far, though you're Americans by passport, I know your hearts are Dutch, so you have a good perspective of the country. But I think just some highlights of maybe what the country looks like, from maybe population of the country to I know there are many different peoples from around the world, from different countries. Maybe if you share a few of those, and then maybe too, just if you do want to share a story or two, be as personal as you want to be, there. But just if you want to share a little bit there, that'd be helpful, just to provide, I think, an umbrella of, hey, this is the Netherlands, at large, a little bit about Amsterdam.
Yeah. Well, basics, like particularly to kind of put it into an American perspective. The Netherlands is a pretty small country. Most people are like, where is the Netherlands? They may know Amsterdam, but not know where the Netherlands is. Some people call it Holland.
Right.
The Dutch are trying to, that's also, they call, the Netherlands, but they're the Dutch. And that's the language that we speak here, or in Dutch, it's actually called Nederlands. Size-wise, it's about twice the size of New Jersey. So, would that be about a fourth the size of Texas, something like that? I don't know. Maybe smaller. Probably smaller.
Yeah.
But maybe an eighth of the size of Texas. Maybe even smaller. Who knows? But it's about 17 million people, though. It's the most densely populated country in the European Union. So I think there's people from it's very international. The Netherlands has always been a big trading country since the last 500 years or so. And in that context, it's meant there's people from all over the world. Amsterdam itself, we have about 870,000 people now. In the city proper, about almost 2 million in the greater Amsterdam area. And just in the city of Amsterdam, there's over 170 different nationalities.
Wow.
And then when you start looking at people's ethnic backgrounds, over 200 different nationalities that people come from. And of course, the Dutch is the largest one, but the city is not even half Dutch any longer. It's so international. Some of the big ones, Morocco, there's a lot of Moroccans, Reef Berbers, some of the ethnic groups from there. Surinamese from Suriname in South America, used to be a Dutch colony. And then Turkey, a lot of Turks. But then a whole host of other countries, Indonesians and Chinese, people from former Soviet Union, the US, of course, Germany, Britain, Belgium, France, other European. But it's very multicultural. You can walk the streets when there were a lot of people and hear almost any language of the world being spoken here, and that's one of the opportunities that we have in this country. Of course, people know it for the windmills and the tulips and the flowers, or Amsterdam for the prostitution or the drugs. Actually, the whole COVID-19 has meant a shutdown
Mhm.
for a lot of that. The so-called coffee shops that don't sell coffee, they'll sell something else that they've had to shut down. The sex shops have had to shut down, and will be at least through the end of August. And that's created new opportunities as well. So I'll let Rhonda share.
Yeah, we're partnering with another group that with the ladies behind the windows not being able to work their normal work, they have had time to do training courses in other occupations. So we've partnered and been a part of these training course so that potentially they can start other types of work when the September officially things, or sooner, when things open up more.
Yeah, and it's just been, actually they started up for a small group of people, and they've had to like more than double the opportunities for giving training to these women and some men who have come to that and said, look, we actually want to do something differently with our life. And so it's created an opportunity for that. And that's, I think, been very exciting to hear about and for our staff to be involved with.
Yeah, that's terrific. I think that's where, we ought to, I guess, look at the situation, realizing it's really terrible for lots of people. You know what I mean? If you're infected, if people have died from this, those types of things. So not to put that to the side, but if we do want to look forward and see in a context of what God's doing, I mean, those are the things that, when would the city would have never shut down, those things. And for me, looking at it, hearing that, knowing some of those probably won't open back up, eventually there will be an opening, but that there are so many who, particularly as you said, and what I've learned, if I remember correctly, a lot of people do get caught up in that because they don't have an option to do anything else. If they're involved in those things, that if they had another option, they might take it. And this is a season where it seems like they're willing to. Like, I don't want to go back and do those things. So I feel like big picture, the Lord's really giving great opportunity for people to not feel so forced or to find other ways or to be willing to look to other ways in this season. And so I think it's great that there have been so many looking like for that training, and obviously for who we are and what we do, to be able to, reach out in a way that's significant to help with training, but also to share of, hope and love that comes at Him when you're kind of blinded by that, when you're caught in the midst of that and there's not those things, you don't have hope and you don't see a way out. And so I'm really encouraged to hear about how the Lord's using this season, to make a change there for those things, and to see that there could be, change in a big way beyond what we ever would have seen before. And so that's been a great byproduct, but been a good effect of this season, the way God's worked in that. So I know that's looking different for you, because I know that those are ministries that y'all have a touch with, that you're connected with in different ways, but it seems like it's just expanded so much, which has been very encouraging. Having spent a bit of time there, it's nice to hear about how God's using those things. So that's a terrific update. So thanks for sharing that. I think too, as we'll move here to close here in a few minutes, if you want to share, if you have a story or two, again, you can be as specific as you want to be. If not, maybe just in general, maybe some things upcoming for you. If that's a little more broad, if you'd like to share that way, that'd be great. And that could lead in a time too, so we might know a couple of, 2, 3, 4 ways that we specifically can be praying for you in your ministry together, for your family, but also for the greater ministry at YWAM. So maybe we could do that. So maybe a story or two if you have that, and then some ways that we can pray for you as a church here at Highland.
Sure. Well, one story that just goes through my mind, kind of along these lines of the unexpected taking place. We were just visiting with one of our staff who is a refugee himself from Pakistan. He's from a Christian background, and came here and joined staff. And then later someone said, look, your story, your life was threatened in so many ways, you should apply for asylum. And so he's like, okay, he wasn't looking for that actually. But as a result, the government moved him to another city. And so we went to visit him, and he told us the story. It's just certainly shortly right after everything with George Floyd and all that's taken place there, and being from Pakistan in a very white Dutch Reformed village, we were talking about his own stories. But he said, "Look, I need to tell you this story about one of the African young men. He was also a refugee who came. That put him here, and he was befriended by a Baptist gentleman, a Dutch Baptist man, who would take him for coffee, who would invite him to church, and then he started thinking, this Christian guy is inviting me to church. Maybe I should go to a mosque." And so he's like, "Okay, I'll go to the mosque." And he went to the Turkish mosque. And sadly, I think in a way, the Turkish mosque said, "Look, you don't belong here. You're not Turkish. This is just for Turks. You're a Black African." He's from Guinea. And so then he felt super rejected. And so he thought, but hold on, these Christians, they welcomed me. And so he decided on his own to go to the government, change his name, legally change his name, and didn't tell anybody about it. And they came back and said to his Dutch Baptist friend, they said, "I'm one of you now. What do I need to do?" And so then they put him in touch with our friend Kaleem, who's from Pakistan, who's also been, through a whole lot. And so they're having coffee and helping disciple him. So I'd never heard a story like that before. But I thought, just the simplicity of finding someone who's different than yourself,
Sure.
and making a friend, and saying, "How can I serve them?" Invite them for coffee. How can I help them get a job? How can I bless them? And then completely unknowingly, what a change that made in their life. And I thought that was just a dramatic testimony to me of the difference that someone can make in another person's life.
Yeah, I think there's many stories we have of people who've come here from different countries, and they have the chance to hear the gospel, and they have a chance to feel safe here. They have a chance to, they said it feels like heaven. Of course, this is not heaven. We know this is not heaven. But I do think that living in a culture that has Christian roots, even though it has become very, very secular, in a way, it's like a bunch of flowers that are cut off from their roots. They look beautiful. They are beautiful. And we hope that they last a long time. But the cutting off from the roots, we hope that European culture will embrace again God as a whole. But for sure, there's many, many things that just are a part of this culture that are very beautiful and that do reflect God and reflect human rights and reflect safety. So yeah, that's really wonderful to help introduce people to that and to the faith behind the culture.
Sure. Absolutely.
I think one other exciting thing that Rhonda was sharing a little bit about this morning, right as this, in fact, right as the pandemic was being announced, she was flying into Brazil for a gathering of people working from all over the world with unreached peoples and so forth. And so, but right before they had gathered, and some of you may have heard of the Send, it was in Orlando last year. They had a Send in Brazil, and I think there were like 140,000 people, Brazilians, who gathered in 3 stadiums. That seems like a generation almost ago when you could do that.
Amazing.
But so many of them want to go into mission. And so we're preparing. How can we prepare ourselves for a new waves of people, whether that's from Brazil or from wherever God's going to bring them, who it's going to be different than the way we've done it before. We know that's going to there's going to be change. But we also know God's not finished with this. He's bigger, and there's new things that are going to happen. And I personally am very excited for how that's, what God's going to do here and around the world as a result of the new season that we're coming into.
Yeah, there's a phrase I think of. It's get ready. And get ready, but God is still the same. His promise of his presence with us, the calling God has on all of our lives is still there, but get ready for the new.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great statement. And I think as we look at the opportunities he's given us, I find myself in the season very grateful that though, he chooses Jesus as the way that he would, and that we would just come before him wanting to walk in obedience, to finish our days going, I was faithful with what he gave me, knowing some days I'll step aside from that, but praise him for his grace, for his mercy, but that he would use us. And like you said, be ready for what's to come, and that he's really setting the groundwork. He's doing work, but also setting us up, I think, for what is to come. Because we do have a new vantage point. I mean, we should. If our eyes are open, we're seeing things differently from what things have been, and to celebrate what he's done, but also look forward to all that is to come. And so I know for us, we're connected in different ways. And if we say that, sometimes people say the very least I can do is pray. Well, there's times where I just want to flip that and just go, well, that's probably the very most we can do. And then we'll add the other, things in beyond, behind the prayer. But what are 3 or 4 ways, whether it's something specific, or just something that's more general, that's just ongoing in prayer moving forward, just 3 or 4 ways that we can be praying for you here.
Yeah. Well, one very specific thing that's on my heart, I think on our hearts together, is some of the refugees that we've been able to reach out to, and one from a particular people group. I won't mention it here, but I just have this sense God is wanting to do something amazing with them, and we've had an opportunity to get to know, at least to meet almost every single one of the refugees from that particular country and from that particular ethnic group here in the Netherlands. The Bible is being translated in their language. It's maybe half done. There's still more to go. Most of the New Testament's completed. And so I just have this sense God is wanting to do something among this particular group in a big way. And well, that's a prayer that I'd like to just, let's pray for the refugee people groups that we've had an opportunity to meet, and that God would move by his Spirit among them.
Yeah, and pray that we could help empower others across Europe to do the same in fruitful, effective ways during this time.
Yeah.
Then I think certainly for our roles of serving, for me with kind of overseeing our work with YWAM here in the Netherlands, we have about 200 some staff across the country. Just that God would give us wisdom of how to serve them best, as they're doing a great job, but how do we serve these people who are passionate that say, God, we want to give our all for you. How can we help them in that journey? And then I think the last thing I would say is for our kids, but maybe you want
I think that they would find the next steps God has for them, and that they would be fruitful and effective in the ministries that God has for them.
Sure.
And it would be great if they weren't too far away, or at least not too far away from a Zoom call.
Yes, absolutely. Totally understand that. Well, those are great things for sure. Thanks for sharing those specifically. I found that the more intentional I can be, the more faithful it just kind of draws me in. And to hear along the way where the Lord's moving, and maybe at times when we don't see, we can still trust Him, for those things. And so that's helpful for us as a practical way to connect from here. And wanted to add for all those who are joining us too, that we do partner with the Ashworths in a way that's financially supporting them from Highland Budget, but also too, and as we just talked about in prayer, certainly we're doing that. At times we've been able to have them back and to welcome them in, to do a call like this. But very practically speaking, we also have opportunity to go and serve alongside them. And there's opportunities we shared. If that's one lane of the DTS that you would like to do, obviously that's something that we can get you more information about. So you can contact me via our website, by my email, or give me a phone call. But also too, there's ways that you could, that could lead for a short-term opportunity to something even longer. So there's a lane there to go alongside and serve. And secondly, we can go and serve on a shorter term. And so we're looking to do that next summer. So you can check in, particularly on our website, for that information. We're going to have that up and running soon, specifically with dates and information there. And we'll just continue to, as if we know 100% that's going to happen. Hopefully by next June, things are in that place, but or continue that way. And so those are ways that we can specifically support and encourage them that we do. And we're so grateful for you, and again, for your family, and for the opportunities, and for you taking time just to share with us today. Very thankful for your time to update us and to celebrate what God's doing and what He's seeing doing in your midst there. And so thank you for your time today. It's been great to see you guys.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Highland.
Yeah, thank you, Highland. Yeah, and come see us.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed the interview today with Steve and Rhonda Ashworth, as this is the final episode in our Go Global series. If you'd like more information about our partners throughout the globe, you can go to hbcwaco.org/missions.